Meaning which, like, so far we have understood what statements are, what different kind of statements, the clauses, their meanings, different forms are, but we really have to also understand, especially in the case of if then, implications, and even the kind of implication we read, if and only if, right, in the last class. Um, we're going to understand, like, how do we ascertain the validity of these statements. So ultimately, that is what it is. The practical use of it, right? It's not just about writing them or formatting them in a given way. That's going to serve the purpose. Ultimately, what is the use of it? From that perspective, the kind of statement we have seen, statements with a we've seen basically compound statements, right? So compound statements have been of type which use and as a connective, or it could be an or, something like that. And then we saw if then. Now, as far as and statements are concerned, we kind of touched upon that as well, like validity of and statements. We said that there could be two clauses, P and Q. And when we are talking about validity of this, then both of them needs to be true. And that's simple enough. You can understand if something and something is given, then for that statement to be true, we need to have both of them individually to be true. That then only can that statement or the compound statement can be considered as true. B is like, we've seen examples of it, say for example, so by this what we are actually saying is that AT is a multiple of 4, and also what we are saying is that AT is a multiple of. So if someone says like whether this statement is true or not, then we can understand that it is actually made up of two component statement P and Q, like this. And for this composite or compound statement to be true, we have to evaluate that if whether P is true or not. That is something we need to evaluate. So 80 is a multiple of 4. Can we say it is a multiple of 4? We will say that yeah, it is actually true. So in this case, this is a true statement. We can say yes, P 80 is a multiple of 4 is true. Also, we'll have to check whether Q is true or false, basically true or false. And if in this case 80 is a multiple of 5 also, so Q, which is given by 80, is a multiple of 5, is true as well. So since both P and Q are true, we say that the statement, let's say this is represented by another alphabet A. The statement A is a true statement. Yeah. So I mean, meaning which what we have defined is that if you are asked, I mean, it is a very simple thing which you are seeing over here. It could be a little more complicated, whether it could be an expression wherein you could be asked something like, let's say, an example of this could be uh, x square plus 5x plus 6 has x plus as equals to 0 has 2 comma 3 as its solutions, something like this, right? So I can call this statement as B, that x square plus 5x plus 6 has, we need to check whether this statement is true or not. That could be the entire question about it. True or false. Someone asks you, evaluate this statement to be true or false. So, in under such circumstances, what this statement can be broken down is into two component statements, that x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0 has 2 as its solution, and q x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0 has 3 as its solution. And let me change that. It would be minus 2 and minus 3. Okay? So, how do we evaluate in this case? Again, I would need to see whether, the first thing I would need to see is evaluate whether P is true or not. Which in this case, if you look at, if I want to see has a minus 2 as its solution, that means from, if one of the things which we know about solution is that if you put this value as x in this equation, we should get a 0 on the left hand side as well, based on the factor theorem, right? We have a factor theorem, we read that. So, if I put x equals to minus 2 in x squared plus 5x plus 6, what do we get? We get negative 2 squared plus 5 into negative 2 plus 6. And this adds up to a 4 plus 6 is a 10, which is equal to minus 10, and that gives you a 0. Meaning that, yeah, x equals to minus 2 is a solution. So I can say that this proves, therefore, or I could say therefore, P is true. So at least we are able to evaluate that this first statement is true. But we are not done yet, because here what it is actually implying is there is a hidden AND statement around it, you could say. When both of them needs to be true, then only can this entire statement be considered as true. So again, for Q to be true, x equal, 3 should be a solution, negative 3 should be a solution. So if you look at it, again, x equals to minus 3 in substituting x squared plus 5x plus 6, we get minus 3 squared plus 5 into minus 3 plus 6. So that gives you a 9. This is negative 15 plus 6, which again evaluates to a 0. So we can say that Q is also true. Therefore, Q is true. Now, knowing that P is true and Q is true, we can say that the entire statement B, which is x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0, has minus 2 and minus 3 as its solutions. Or we could have written an alternate word, roots. Yes, we can do that. How we approach this particular problem can be, varied. It doesn't really have to be one single way. Whatever techniques we are aware of to get to the root or a solution is something which is possible. You could use the determinant rule. Nobody can stop us from using that. If the numbers are a little weird or something which are more tricky, then you could have used the determinant rule also. So, given this, this approach can, be extended to evaluate OR statements also. As you can tell, what would be the only difference? The difference being that for an AND to be true, P and Q both needs to be true. That is the only important aspect we need to worry. We should be aware of how to prove these individual statements to be true, but we should additionally be aware that for this entire statement, both the conditions need to be satisfied at the same time, or both the component statement need to be true at the same time. For evaluating an OR statement, compound statement, which could be formed out of two or more component statements, we just need to prove either of them. Either P or Q or both. But in our case, what is happening is we have inclusive. So that means we can, if P is true or Q is true alone would serve our purpose. Either P or Q. If P or Q, or if both of them are true, that means this condition is also fine. But in either case, like if this alone is true, then the entire statement becomes true also, right? So we don't have to. So what that means is that if you have a statement which is connected by an OR connective, you just need to pick one condition and prove it to be true. You don't really need, or you don't really need to worry about proving both of them to be true, right? This in this case, what we call it as inclusive. Basically, it's inclusive. That means we are including both as well in this. But sometimes what we call is an exclusive OR, which means that only P or Q should be true, not both. An example of this is like if you take a if you go to a restaurant and buy some meal from it, and they say that with this meal you have a choice of either picking up a soft drink or a coffee, but you can't pick both of them. So that's a exclusive condition, like you're given two choices, but you can only pick one of them and not both of them. That's an exclusive OR. Inclusive could be, they have like, pick anything out of this or both. You're free to, maybe it's kind of like a buffet, they're serving everything, so you can pick whatever. So that's about and OR. Now coming to if and if then statements, right? So if then statement actually, find, and we have kind of, seen under what circumstances they are valid. But there are ways by which we should be able to figure out how to make, evaluate those statements. So we do remember that if then can be when P is true and Q is true, then if then is an implication, right? We say that this is true. And even if P is true, and Q is false, we say that it is not an implication, it's not a true statement in that case. And if P is false and Q is true, we say that the entire statement is true, this is false, this is, if both of them are true, this is also true. And if P is false and Q is false, what happens under that? It is considered to be true. So only when P is not true is P is false, it is considered okay. So only when Q is false, it is considered to be a false statement. Otherwise, it is considered to be a true statement. But how do we actually go about proving such statement is also an important thing to understand, and that is what we are going to do now. Q is false, then it is not an implication. Otherwise, it is yes. Yeah. Only under this it is not a implication. Rest of it is. So the methods of proving implications basically is what we are going to cover next. And a couple of them are given. At least I think there are 2 or 3 of them, and let's figure them out. One of them is called as direct method. Okay. The other is called as contrapositive method. And third is what we call as contradiction. Okay. So these are some of the methods by which you can actually prove, any if-then statement, or if there are multiple things, and we know if we want to see whether an implication is true or not. There is a direct method, and there is a contrapositive method, and then there is a contradiction. So what does the direct method say? That we kind of assume, under the direct method, what we say is we assume P to be true. So if there is a if then, that means we are kind of having a P and a Q, right? Everything is we are evaluating whether this implication is true or not. So we assume that P to be true, and we prove Q to be true as well. So basically this means that we start with P as an assumption, let this be true, something like that. And if we are able to get to a point which actually proves the Q statement to be true as a direct inference from it, then we say that the statement if then is true. Because what we are saying is that it's kind of, in a certain way, we are saying that P is a sufficient condition to prove Q to be true. If you remember, we had that, right? So we start again, I'm saying we start with P to be true, and then we prove Q to be true. And if that happens, then we say that we have done, the proof of this particular implication by direct method. And let's take an example of it. So we have a question over here. It says, and okay, before we actually, before we even, what does contrapositive say? Contrapositive is actually, we assume, if you remember what was contrapositive, not Q implies not P, right? That was what contrapositive was. So what we are actually saying is that we say that Q is false. We assume that Q is false. And we prove that P is also false. And when we are able to do that, we say that it is a proof by contrapositive method. Okay? And under contradiction, what we say is that okay, so contradiction is basically we assume something to be true, and what we kind of assume is, in that case, that assumption goes wrong. Basically, that's what happens in the case of contradiction, that assumption that P is true and Q is false. We assume that P is true and Q is false. And during the process, this contradiction, this assumptions are found to be false, and then we say that we have proved it to be a case of proof by contradiction. So the examples are going to make it amply clear in this case. Say the question says, if x and y are odd integers, then xy is odd. So if the question again says that if x and y are odd integers, then x is odd. So basically, this is your statement P, and Q is xy is odd. Okay. Now the direct method would say that let us assume this to be the true, because we ultimately evaluate something. So let us assume that x and y are odd integers. Let x and y are odd integers. So if x and y are odd, that means x can be written as 2 times n plus 1, something like that. And y can also be written as 2 times n plus 1, where n and m are some natural numbers. So what we have done is we have kind of assumed this to be the case. We assume P to be true. So based on this being true, we have kind of given it a form like this. And now we're going to see whether with this we are going to be able to evaluate and find that xy is also odd. So based on this, xy turns out to be 2n plus 1 into 2m plus 1. And if we multiply it, what do we get? We get 4nm plus 2n plus 2m plus 1. So if you look at it, this is, I can take 2 common out of this, and write it as 2nm plus n plus m plus 1, which again kind of is of a form, this thing would be some other number, let's say p or s maybe. So I can write it as 2 times s plus 1, and this proves it that 2 times s some number plus 1 would be an even number or an odd number. Odd number. So this is odd, and we have proved that x and y, xy is odd. So this proof is a application of direct method. Okay. So now we'll come to contrapositive. So contrapositive is like we are assuming that our Q is not true. So Q is not true means Q is not true means that xy is not odd. That is what it means, right? So xy is not odd. That means xy is even. That means xy can be written as 2 times some number, maybe m. All right. So if this is going to be 2 times some number, then that means this I can I get a value x and y as, and let us assume in that case if p is q implies that p is also false. Okay. So if the product is how do I evaluate that these two are going to be giving me x and y are not odd in that case? Okay. So this means this is going to be even number. So I can write it that maybe that let's say one of them, for this to be a false statement, what could be the way we can say that the product is 2 times m and so it would be 2 times some number maybe, and let's assume that x is odd. Can we assume? I can't assume in this case because I need to prove p to be the case. So if this product is even, then how? Okay, so I think this is fair enough. Like for any product to be even, either of the numbers, like we're doing a product of two numbers, either of the number x or y has to be even, right? One of them has to be even, or both of them needs to be even. Yeah. So this kind of directly proves that this implies that either of x or y needs to be even for x, y to be even. Meaning that what we have done is, since we assume that q is not true, that means q is false. The false part of we are able to say that if one of either x or y is even is what we have proved, that means it is contradicting our statement p as well, which is giving us negation of p. So what we are getting is q negation q is actually implying negation p, because what we have done is with this condition we have been able to prove that either x or y needs to be even. So that can only be meaning that this statement, whatever is given, is a false statement, and that means that if we are able to prove using the negation of q that negation of true is being implied, negation of p is being implied, then we can say that this proof is by contrapositive method. Alright? Does it make sense? Does it amply clarify the approach basically? So, okay. Now the third thing is the proof by contradiction. And this I think, may have done earlier as well. Can you recall anything like this? Proof by contradiction. Did we have irrationality proofs in grade 9 or 10? Like proving some number to be irrational. So let's say I'll give you an example. So first of all, we need to we need to understand that in the case of contradiction, what do we do? So contradiction actually says that is we assume that P is true, okay, and Q is false. We assume P is true and Q is false and obtain a contradiction, and then we obtain a contradiction. So say for example, let's say we have a question like this. P, if X is real number such that X cube plus 4X equals 0, then X is 0. Is true by, so we need to prove that this is true by, maybe one of the methods. And one of them could be direct method, second could be contrapositive, and third is contradiction. And since we have taken a few steps, like maybe first of all you can see, like, can you try the direct and the contrapositive method in this case? Maybe try and see if you can prove this. So X was one of the factors, right? So basically, in the case of direct, in this, what will happen is that since we have x cube plus 4x equals to 0 is what we consider to be, if x is real such that this is equals to 0, then x is 0. So in the case of direct, we say that P is true. So if P is true, that means x cube plus 4x equals to 0 is true for x real, x is real. That means I can do x into x square plus 4 equals 0 for x is real. Now this can be 0 only when your x is 0, because x square plus 4 cannot be 0. This cannot be 0. It's a square of a number plus 4 can never be a 0 value. So this gives us the fact that x is 0, which is what your q is, then x is 0. So what we are saying is that taking this to be true is actually implying that x is 0, which is your q statement in this case. So this is a proof by direct method. And how about contrapositive? Yeah, we also prove that q not q actually implies not p. So what we are saying is, in that case, let's say by contrapositive method, that not q is true basically, right? We're kind of taking it. That means x is not 0, or what we can write as x is not equal to 0. So if x is not equal to 0, then x times x square plus 4. If this is not 0, then this entire statement can also not be 0, because ultimately x square plus 4 is a positive number and that cannot be 0. So if x is not 0, then this product will not be 0. That means x cube plus 4x is also not going to be 0, and that is count negation of p, right? Which is such that x cube plus 4x is equals to 0. So this is negation of p. So negative q actually implied negative p, and therefore we write that this proof is by contrapositive method. Okay, so kind of makes sense. Now the same thing can be done with contradiction as well, method of contradiction. So we say that the statement is true. So we're not saying, when we say here P doesn't actually mean the first part of it, by the way. Here P is actually the entire statement. Okay, we are considering the entire statement as P and not a part of it. When I write proof by contradiction, okay, assume is true and Q. Okay, P is true and Q is false, and obtain a contradiction. So what we are assuming is something. We'll assume that this is true, and okay, and x is not 0, and then we'll assume okay. So I think it makes sense. So it is pretty clear in this case also. So if p is true, that means what we are assuming is that x cube plus 4x equals to 0 is true, and let this be true, and x not equal to 0 be false. This is what we are assuming. Okay, so with this assumption, what we get is again x cube plus 4x equals 0. X gives you x square plus 4 equals to 0, and we say that this is, since what we can say, since x square plus 4 cannot be 0, therefore x equals 0 is only possible. That kind of contradicts the assumption. So our assumption was that first part is 0 and the second is false, and we found from the first that the second actually is being contradicted. Therefore we say that proof, this is a proof by, it's a proof by contradiction. Okay, correct. There are important questions around contradiction. I think we have validation of statement. Okay, so something like, now coming to if and only if, right? There would not be any problem, like if we know these three methods of proving if and then. If and only if statement are nothing but a direct application of the same methods, but you have to apply it for P implies Q and if Q implies P or not. So your work is kind of doubled, that's all. So if you want to do by proof by contradiction, then you would assume this to be true and this to be false and prove it by contradiction. And at the same time, you'll also need to take this Q to be true and P to be false, and again prove it by contradiction. So if you are able to prove the both the implications, then you can say that if and only if statement is proved, basically, right? So nothing different you would do, except that you would have to repeat the steps what you do for an if and then implication. Yeah. So basically, this kind of sums up this particular chapter, right? So ultimately, this would serve up to be a foundation of what we may need in some cases, especially in sets and functions and relations, the topics in even in calculus, where there might be application of this the techniques, and more broadly, if you ask me, if you go for research, then these are very extensively. So I'll post questions as I always do, and then you can try them out. And this is, you can say, the crux of it. We'll save the best for the last. So take time to go through it, evaluate, question it, and come back with doubts, and do each and every question of subsequent exercise which I'm going to share today by end of day, maybe